Hey everyone, welcome to another G News update. Just getting coffee here at Fenice out in the alleyway. Thank you very much. Um, it's my favorite cafe, and this flat white coffee. It's a really, really good way to start the day. Well, um, the news this morning really should be about Palestinian statehood. And there were a couple of front page articles about the interchange yesterday with Chloe Swarbrick talking about how we shouldn't be delaying this. We should just get on with it. And 146 other United Nations member states have already found it quite straightforward and simple to take the first step and acknowledge the statehood of Palestine. But our government, for some reason, thinks it's going to have to be a very complicated and complex issue, and they're going to have to delay for weeks on end at the moment while there's this unfolding genocide, human catastrophe happening with millions of people in an open-air prison being starved to death. So, I mean, when it comes to human rights, it doesn't get much worse than that. But here we are, and basically Chloe is correct as far as everybody else is concerned, and that is that we're sitting on our hands and we're just doing nothing. And this looks very much like all we're doing is playing into a sort of another coalition spat. The problem that Chris Hipkins identified early on was that both Davey Boy Seymour and Winston Peters would run rings around Christopher Luxon, and he's no leader. So this leadership crisis is really making us really a dysfunctional country, and as a member state, we're now lagging behind all of the others. Australia found it straightforward. Canada, all of the others, they're basically able, Five Eyes members, they're all able to go, ahead and do things quickly. But in New Zealand, we're kind of hamstrung, and nobody at the top is prepared to be honest with New Zealand. So this is the government that we voted for. This is the government, well, I didn't vote for, you didn't vote for, but a majority voted for a government that wouldn't tell them the truth, that would sit on its hands, that was ineffective, that promised to get things done. But is it getting things done? It's saying it's going to get it done. But basically it won't even tell us what the process is. It won't tell us what the Prime Minister actually thinks on this position. And basically it's kind of captive to Davey Boy Seymour at the ACT Party, who seems to have a lot to say and has already ruled out any kind of agreement unless Hamas demilitarizes. So these kind of outcomes are really, really bad for New Zealand. And I think we've all had enough of it. And I think we all agree we need to vote out this government and get a more functional government that can actually represent us in a democracy and be honest with us and transparent. So anyway, the other story that the media kind of seized on here was Chloe and Chloe's story. And Chloe's story is basically that, okay, she said some words in Parliament yesterday to do with getting a spine, and for some reason Jerry Brownlee decided that this warranted not only being sort of sent out of Parliament, but being sent out of Parliament beyond what the standing orders said, which was really only for a 24-hour period. So, you basically got Jerry suddenly extending the rules and trying to be harsher than the rules. And if the rules matter at all, then we shouldn't be seeing this from somebody who's in the role of Speaker. They should be honouring standing orders and not extending them at their own discretion like this. We saw an attempt to kind of like bring this back, but Jerry didn't seem to get it and said that Chloe needed to apologise, and if she apologised, then she could return to Parliament. But now the latest report suggests that Chloe just might actually be there at 2 o'clock and no apologies required. And I think that might have to do with the public becoming aware of the fact that Judith Collins had used the word spine, get a spine, and there was no problem at all with Judith Collins using those terms. It's also been a term that's been used by Winston Peters. And Winston Peters, there was no problem with the Speaker. The Speaker didn't think that using the words a spine, getting a spine or being spineless was one of those words that you can't use. It's a non-parliamentary word. There was also this other, history that's been laid down in, I think it's in Stuff, an article by Lloyd Burr who covers this topic, and there's something like half a dozen examples of members of Parliament using the word spine or spineless, and there being no consequences whatsoever. But when a female from the Green Party or Hannah from TPM, steps over these kind of like conventions and rules about proper form, Jerry's been coming down on people, like a ton of, let's not use that kind of reference, like basically beyond what is required and outside the norm, and it's just not right. It's not just. And I think it runs the risk of bringing the House of Representatives into disrepute if the Speaker is actually not going to take a look and reflect on his own performance here, which I think he needs to do, and restore some faith in the whole system, because this is just wrong. And if he still wants an apology, that's not going to stand in our democracy. Jerry's going to have to go. It's not good enough, Jerry. You need to actually admit you made a mistake. Apologise to all of us, actually. Apologise to Chloe for what you put her through. And it's not good enough. You might be considered by some to be one of the better speakers, but here's a testing moment for you, Jerry. And I joked away about hearing aids, because normally I need hearing aid as well. But I'm noticing a disturbing amount of information is being missed by Jerry in Parliament, and his rulings tend to favour the National Party, the government. When something happens, he doesn't hear it, and he hears it well enough, I think, when somebody on his left makes some sort of remark, but he doesn't hear what's going on the right very often. So those were sort of the headline stories in the minds of New Zealanders this morning. It's this whole Palestinian statehood, us dragging our asses, sitting on our hands, taking far too much time to get around to doing what's the right thing. Just do something instead of just waffling, talking about shit. So that's a problem for us all. In other news, we've got this, I guess, array of different smaller stories this morning. One of them has to do with Lloyd again. Lloyd Burr wrote an article in Stuff where he detailed 8 things that he thought that could be seen as a success for this government. Could be, but probably aren't. And what I'm talking about here are things like bringing inflation down, as if the government did that. But as we all know, inflation was already coming down from its peak since about July in 2022. And by the time the government got in to power that we've got right now, inflation had already come down a couple of percent to something in the order of 5%. And so this government inherited declining inflation. And inflation is mainly the territory of the Reserve Bank and monetary policy. So why that would be a success for this government is beyond all of us, but Lloyd was attributing it to them wrongly, I think. And then in the same way, he said mortgages had come down from about 7.5% to 5%, but that's automatically part of the first thing that he's wrongly crediting to the government as a success. It's not a success, it's just what happens. It's automated, they're going to bring down their mortgage rates when the OCR comes down. And therefore, this is again monetary policy. So that's 2 out of the 8 that had nothing to do with the success of the government. And the other factors that Lloyd mentioned, I mean, many of them escape me, but they're not things that are really success either. For example, he said, Chris Bishop's working on the RMA. Oh gosh, he's working on reforming the RMA. It could be seen as a success. But really, we're just sort of halfway through the RMA. And don't forget, we had already gone through years of proper consultation and proper lawmaking. The first thing Bishop did was tear all that down so that he could put his fast-track consenting steal some ideas of the previous work, take credit for that work, and it's still in progress. So why is Lloyd saying that the RMA reform is a success when it's plainly not? There were more examples, but I mean, you get the drift that there wasn't anything really there, if you keep going through it, that, should be credited. And I guess that's why Lloyd said it could be seen to be a success, but it's really not. Not bad. Then the things that he said should concern us about the government, well, they were equally kind of like missing in action. There was nothing in there really about, they didn't pay equity as a kind of a controversial thing that the government had done. But that was outrageous. It was just wrong. They shouldn't have stolen that money off 180,000 low-paid women and workers. The whole supermarket thing, they're sitting on their hands. They haven't dealt with the cost of living. There's been no action that's helped bring down the price of all of our groceries. Saw yesterday in Parliament, didn't you, that Bishop was floundering when it came to answering questions from Aaron Williams, who was saying, "Oh, look, what have you done for 16 months? You've taken 16 months to get around to doing a little RFI, and now nothing's happened since the RFI." And Bishop's kind of like, "Oh, well, Willis is busy. She's very busy, and you don't know how busy she is. Some of her stuff's not even public. She's so busy." But it hasn't helped. So it's all talk and excuses, and they've done nothing because they haven't got things done. We will get things done. They promised us, but no, they haven't got anything done. Family flop. Nobody can find this $250 tax relief that Christopher Luxon went up and down New Zealand before the election, promising everyone that you would get if you had 2 children. But no one got it. It just was a big crapola. And so the rates are going up, the power prices are going up. They haven't done anything about intervening in the electricity sector. We're being gouged. Businesses are being driven out. There's so many liquidations going on. Everything's at sort of record levels. And I think the blame game, wore thin a long time ago. And now everyone's thoroughly sick and tired of listening to that rhetoric from this leader who isn't a leader. This prime minister, he's got to go. So Lloyd basically, what I would say is he basically wrote this kind of piece that wasn't factual, that gave credit where it wasn't deserved, that restrained itself from really criticizing the government, and instead said it could be kind of controversial, some of these things that have happened. And, he just said, well, this Treaty Principles Bill was controversial. But it was really, really wrong, wasn't it? It was a major attempt at ACT Party grandstanding. It was a real misuse of public money and time. It was a waste of effort. It was bad for race relationships. It was really an awful thing to do. It really set us all back. And now we've got this seabed legislation, which is manifestly unjust and is going to involve a lot of pushback, possibly another Hikoi is going to have to descend upon Parliament about that. We'll just wait and see what happens. I'm going to have to drink a little bit more coffee. Hang on. Yeah, so the noise just stopped behind me. Apparently they can't serve alcohol here. I was going to drink a glass of wine, not that I can really afford it. Vicky hasn't been able to get a job, so we're trying to think of things to do, that can help raise a little bit more money for G News, maybe. But watch that space. If you can help, that would be really good, because we're really relying on you guys at the moment. When it comes to other news, well, the Post was basically talking about things like Andrea Vance was talking about some kind of poo factory that's going to cost more than was originally thought by the council. So this is this kind of stuff, and the Post having a bit of a war with the council ever since some issues happened, between them and Tory at some event. So it's kind of a vendetta. But basically, inflation's come along, and the price of these kind of implementations and infrastructure projects have gone up for everyone. At the same time, we've got people going, well, why can't central government help fund local government? You know, they talk a big game about devolution, but you're not passing GST on to councils. And you come to Auckland and you take away their source of funding through the regional fuel tax, and then all our rates go up. And now we're being hit with these huge bills. A report came out that suggested that your water bills could be heading towards something like $5,000 a year by 2034. So imagine paying $5,000 a year because people voted for National Act in New Zealand First and rejected Three Waters, which would have been a lot more affordable. So imagine that kind of future, being a voter that didn't know, couldn't see what you were doing. Possibly you were a bit prejudiced and you didn't like co-governance, but you cost us all these enormous rates, and people have to sell their houses and move out. The housing market is still down, so the entire plan that the government had to fix the economy was basically just to ride in the slipstream of monetary policy, do a whole lot of cuts, to look good to neoliberals and people that believe in classical libertarian philosophies of small government, like Chris Bishop and Nicola Willis, and of course Davy Boy, and make us all suffer, make our public services so much weaker, put us all at risk, put our nurses at risk, put our teachers in a situation where no one wants to be a teacher because everyone's having all their resources cut. So all of that's been going on, and it's not worked. This whole housing gig, where they were going to pump up housing again and say they'd fix the economy because everyone feels good when the value of your house goes back up. But as Bernard Hickey keeps telling us, really what's going on here is that we've got these loan to value ratios that are being applied by the Reserve Bank. So people are looking at the situation right now and saying, nah, I'm not going to upgrade, I'm not going to improve, I'm not going to buy more properties. At the moment, things are pretty flat. And so the whole effort to stimulate the housing market with a huge tax cut for landlords and all the kind of things they're doing to kind of tilt the playing field for homeowners and property speculation and investment haven't worked. It's below the threshold. Now, next week, the Monetary Policy Committee at the Reserve Bank will actually issue another OCR decision, and the whole forecasts and projections will come out from the Reserve Bank, which will be an update. And as you know, the high-frequency data that they receive about card transactions and what's really been going on will give them a sort of a steer before they put this all into their AI model that tells them whether they can bring the OCR down next week by 25 basis points. Basically, what that forward data, which is high frequency because it's monthly, is going to tell the Reserve Bank is something like, well, we've been in the recession during the last quarter, which is the June quarter, and this is when Christopher Luxon promised you, and so did Nicola Willis, that we were going for growth, and that was fantastically successful because they had a big investor summit. And they went to India with a yellow cricket bat, which was made of plastic, and they played dress up over there and cricket in the street. And Todd was a hero because we started to talk with India about an FTA again, like we had been for many, many years since, God knows when, 2013, 2014, 2015, all the way up until when we stopped talking to them around 2016. And now we're talking to them again. So maybe years and years will go by. It was going to take 60 days, but that came and went. Then it was going to be 90, and that came and went. And now, sometime by Christmas, we'll have an FTA, but that'll go and there won't be an FTA. So there's a new excuse, and that is Liberation Day from Trump. Everything would have been fine. The housing market would have gone great. Everything would have been good. We would have got the FTA in 60 days. There would have been more than just two projects from that investor summit, which was a fail, wasn't it? I mean, in any regard, both those projects were going to happen anyway. You didn't need a summit. So that was all show pony sort of marketing, trying to look busy as you kind of ride in the slipstream of monetary policy and pretend that it's all up to you. It's your credit, and you've got Luxon out there stealing credit, and no one can trust the guy. He doesn't have any integrity. So that's where we've all arrived at. There are other stories in the Post as well this morning. That Andrea Vance was at the poo factory. Off the top of my head, I'm struggling to remember them because they weren't particularly notable, but one of them was about Kayanga Ora and the fact that they've really reduced the number of builds down. I think it might be almost half under Chris Bishop. Really stalled construction. So you've got the whole industry arguing that that big stall really didn't help us, our economy. And you've got Chris Bishop saying everybody else is wrong. And listen to me, I'm Chris Bishop, former tobacco salesman, Snapchat guy. And you have to choose who you actually believe. Again, Chris Bishop, he believes that the Auckland City Mission are wrong, and they've got their view about what's going on with the homelessness that people are experiencing, but they must be wrong because Chris Bishop knows best. So it's weak, and what a schmozzle he was yesterday. Now, he spent some time yesterday in Parliament telling this big cool story, bro, which was about how Treasury was suddenly telling us the gospel truth after years and years of National Party politicians laughing at Treasury and saying, oh, well, you take Treasury with a grain of salt. When it suited Stephen Joyce, he completely mocked Treasury papers. But now, when it's really, really convenient, Nicola Willis has gone from saying they got it wrong to now suddenly, when it's convenient now, we need Treasury, they've got it right. And all of News Talk ZB have gone, holy crap, we need to do a campaign. We need to do weeks and weeks on how this is proof and vindication that everything that Nicola Willis has ever said was 100% right, because here this guy, Ian Rennie, the new secretary that she helped to appoint that works for her, who comes out of the whole Ruth Richardson school of low debt, he can't be wrong. He's got to be right. So this is absolutely stretching it. This paper wasn't that great. In fact, it's been critiqued really, really well by Craig Rennie. And I've got some advance news for you that tomorrow, Craig Rennie is going to produce his Locked Out podcast, which I recommend to all of you. And I especially recommend tomorrow that you tune in to watch it, because I'm going to interview Craig about this exact issue. What the heck is going on with Treasury's paper, and you've got Chris Bishop kind of saying one thing in Parliament about how this proves something about Labour overspending and causing all of our problems and vindicates the blame game. But obviously, once we talk to Craig and get into the details, we'll probably find out something of a different story. So tune into that tomorrow. That'll be both on Locked Out, which is part of the BHN, the Big Hearing News Network, and it'll also be here on G News, because we all work together for the same cause, and that's to change this government and to free us all into the Aotearoa New Zealand that we really, 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 really could have if we could just give nature and our people and all the people of this country a chance. So there was probably more to say, but I think I'll just leave it there. And it's pretty cool here. I like that mural there, don't you? I mean, it's a snazzy little alleyway, and this alleyway connects the main drag, which is in front of me, to the car park behind me. And people come and go in and out here, and this is a very cool place to have a coffee with one or two people, have a nice intimate conversation in the fresh air. And so I'll leave you there, and I'll talk to you all again soon. We've got Parliament this afternoon again, and hopefully we'll see Chloe there, unapologetic. Palestinian statehood, everyone. Have a great day. Talk to you all again soon. Cheers.
Welcome to G News, the good news.